Congress has until the end of the month to come to an agreement to fund the government. Lawmakers are already bracing for a fight and a potential shutdown, with more and more Democrats vowing to take a hard-line position if their demands aren't met. Democrats are also eager to avoid a repeat of the last funding battle back in March, when Senate Democrats allowed Republicans to pass their funding bill. Also complicating government funding negotiations is the president's push to use a rarely used mechanism called a pocket rescission to unilaterally cut congressionally mandated spending, a move that some Senate Republican appropriators say is unconstitutional. Joining me here on set is Democratic Congresswoman from Washington, Suzan DelBene. She's also the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Congresswoman, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with government funding. What is it that you want as a Democrat in these negotiations? Do you have some specific asks as you go into this process?
Well, I think this is about doing the work for the American people, the people you represent. Folks are seeing costs go up dramatically. Affordability is the #1 issue across the country. Housing, food, health care, child care, energy costs. Folks want relief. In fact, that was the #1 issue in the last election. Trump promised to lower costs on day one. That's a big broken promise from Republicans. Our focus, as we look into funding for next year, should be on what is the work we're doing to help working families across the country. And the big ugly bill that Republicans passed made it even worse.
But you're in a situation now where you're only 9 days or so, I think, legislative days away from the end of the fiscal year. It's impossible to pass the appropriations bills necessary to keep the government open. So it's going to require some sort of a short-term continuing resolution. Would you be willing to vote yes on a short-term as clean as it can be, CR, to allow those negotiations to continue?
Well, you just brought up, I don't even think we know exactly what that means under this administration. And again, Republicans have the White House, they have the Senate, they have the House. They've been in charge this whole time. They can drive this agenda. If we're heading for a shutdown, it's because that's where they're leading us. Let's have folks come to the table, work in a bipartisan way to pass legislation. That's what's critically important. And it is Congress's job, not the president's at his whim, to decide what's funded or not. And I think that's critically important. Republicans have basically given up their authority to the president. They're not listening to the American people. They're just waiting for Donald Trump to tell them what to do.
Well, you're probably not surprised that Speaker Johnson has a different view of that. This is what he said earlier today on the funding fight.
It seems Democrats may take the path of maximum resistance and try to shut the government down. It's not surprising because they're struggling, because they don't really have a message or a leader. They are desperately searching for a solution, and some in the party apparently think a government shutdown would be some sort of political advantage to them. It'd be what we all know is dangerous and harmful to millions of Americans, and that is not the answer. So I'm going to say this again, and I'm saying it in good faith. I've shared this with the Democrat leader in the House and other colleagues. If Democrats are willing to work with us, we have our sleeves rolled up, and we want to do this in good faith.
So I want you to respond to one thing specifically. He said that the Democrats view the government shutdown as some sort of a political advantage. Do you think that's true?
I think what's important is that we are supporting the American people. Shutting down the government does not help the American people. It hurts the American people. The damage they have done to the federal government, to agencies, hurts the American people. We should be fighting for funding. And in fact, the fiscal year always ends on September 30th. Republicans shouldn't be waiting to the end of the year to come up with a funding package. They should have been working on this a long time ago. I think it's really important that we have year-long funding bills, provide that certainty and stability, because what we've seen from congressional Republicans and from the administration is chaos since the beginning of this year. That's having effects on the ground. Prices are rising. Businesses don't have any certainty going forward. And then you have uncertainty about whether the government's going to be funded or not, all because Republicans, the White House, the Senate,
But he says you're not willing to negotiate. Is that true?
We're ready to be at the table. Republicans don't even know what they want to do. They're in charge. They have all the levers. They're in charge. So it's actually pretty funny that the leader, the Speaker of the House, is saying he doesn't want to do. He has a majority in the House. He has the control to do that, and yet he doesn't know what to do.
I feel like I'm in a bit of a bizarre world today because I was all over the Capitol today, both in the House and Senate. I sat in both the Senate leadership pressers. Republicans say Democrats don't want to negotiate. Democrats say Republicans don't want to go negotiate. Should I just get you all in a room? I mean, it seems like this shouldn't be that hard if everybody says they want to negotiate.
If we want to have true leadership on the Republican side, they're in charge. They have to go forward and tell us how they're going to work with us to get this moving forward. We're ready. It has to be bipartisan. You can't even get them to commit that there's going to be a bipartisan solution here. They're in charge of everything. But they have no leadership because they don't know what to do unless Donald Trump tells them what to do.
Okay, let's move on and talk about the midterms. You are, of course, the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I want to show you this poll that NBC News conducted over the weekend about party favorability. It says right now that 41% of Americans view the Democratic Party favorably, 59% view them unfavorable. How difficult does that make your job as chair of the DCC?
You know, when we actually talk to people in districts, when we actually talk about members of Congress, they like their Democratic members of Congress, especially in battleground districts, in these purple districts across the country. They have strong representatives. They're polling well. And so I think what's important is that we have great candidates who are talking about the issues that matter on the ground. They're the folks who are going to make a difference and be voices here in Washington, D.C. Right now, even in the last election, we had 14 Democrats win in districts that Donald Trump also won in. 14 Democrats, these purple districts. Why? Great candidates who are independent-minded voices for their communities. That's how we pick up more seats, too.
Well, I haven't seen your polling, but I'll take you at your word that they like your incumbents. But you need more than incumbents, right? And you're going to introduce new candidates in many of these races that are going to run under the Democratic brand. Doesn't the Democratic brand need to improve to help those new candidates who are making the pitch?
But these are great candidates, and that's why I said we won in Trump districts last time. Having great candidates, they are the ones who actually make the Democratic brand. They are the ones who people look at and say, these people doing work that matters make a difference. And Republicans broke promises. They've raised costs. They are creating damage to our economy. Working families are hurting. Their bill is underwater because it's slashing health care across the country. That's what people are seeing, and that's why you see polling on Republicans and on the president way underwater because people are feeling what's happening on the ground. They know the damage that's being done.
You have one other complication here you have to deal with, and that's the Republican effort to redistrict in so many of these red states across the country. We've already seen it play in Texas. Missouri's talking about doing it now. Your Democrats are responding in some blue states. Aren't you worried about this arms race that's happening with redistricting and how that could impact just the way you do business in Washington?
Well, we have always been fighting for fair maps across the country. Republicans vote against any legislation we put forward to try to make sure that we have voting rights, fair maps across the country. They can't win on the issues. If they could, they'd be out talking about the issues. Kind of to my earlier point, it's clear that they can't win on the issues. So they're trying to rig the system. And that's what Trump didn't say, we're hearing from the people of Texas, they want to see a new map. He said, I want 5 more seats. And the people of Texas hate this. The people of Missouri, when you talk to them about, they hate it. So, you know, if Republicans are going to go down this path, one, they should be careful what they do because they're going to probably create districts that we're going to win in because Democrats have been running ahead in special elections and people are angry. But we're going to fight back with everything we have, and they can't take away the voice of voters in other states, and that's why you're seeing states like California fight back, too.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Congresswoman Suzan DelBene, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.